Hi everyone, my name is Greymond and we are here with another edition of OCD Live. So today I wanted to discuss a topic of reassurance. A lot of my clients, when they start doing sessions with me, they don't realize what reassurance really is. And for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, I just wanted to go over the reassurance in general and then in specifics and what harm it does to your OCD recovery. So what do I mean by reassurance? By reassurance, I mean any behavior that is done to reassure yourself that you are safe. So for example, if we take, let's take driving OCD, because that's the one I always give examples on because it's pretty straightforward compared to other types. So the person is driving, they hit a speed bump or just, something laying on the road, they think it's a person. Now, this is what reassurance starts. So reassurance can, in this situation, reassurance can be looking back to see if it was anything important, stopping and actually getting out of the car, going back, checking the car itself, trying to, later on, like when the person is already home, trying to go back in their mind to the situation to try to figure out if the thought was true or not, or if there was anything to worry about. Checking stuff online, like checking news reports, or like seeing if there was any accidents in the area, asking other people about the situation. All of these are examples of reassurance. And even, I talk to a lot of people every day, as you probably know. And this particular situation, like the driving thing, I hear all the time. All the time. And people do exactly the same thing, is that they just keep on checking and they keep doing all of these behaviors and they start to feel worse. Now, why does reassurance make you feel worse? The reason is that the part of the mind that is sending you these thoughts is not really capable of fully seeing the situation as it really is. It only can take cues from you to see if the thought is true or not. So if you are doing this reassurance, all of these reassurance or any of these reassurance behaviors, it's like you're saying to your mind that the thought is true and is real. Your mind sees that you're saying that and is going to send you more of these types of thoughts. So by you doing reassurance, you are, it's like you're ensuring that you're going to get more of these thoughts in the future. And this is actually the opposite of what you're trying to do. You're trying to make the current thought go away, but you're going to get another one. Because again, just like I gave the example, if you didn't listen to the yesterday's show, that every time you do the reassurance, it's like you're telling your thought it's true, okay? But it's not, so your mind gets confused. Now let's compare it to hypothetical situation, and you can see how it's the same thing. So say for example, this is, just an imaginary situation just to illustrate the point. One day you decided to go to the woods, and in the woods you see a bear. You get scared by the bear, you run away. Now, a week later you decide to go back to the woods. What's going to happen? Your mind is going to send you thoughts about the bear as soon as before you even go into the woods. You're going to start to get nervous and anxious. When you go into the woods, around every corner, around every, tree or shrub, you're going to think you see a bear. Because your mind doesn't know if there's danger or not, so it's going to send you a signal just in case to try to protect you. Same thing with this. So your mind is going to send you, every time you're going to drive, it's going to send you a thought, oh, what if you hit something? Oh, what if you hit something now? Or maybe this time it's true. The other time maybe wasn't true, but now this time for sure it's true. So, but the way you can stop it is if you start to act as if the thought is not true, as if this is not relevant to your life, even if at first you're faking it, even if you don't feel that it's not true, you're still going to act like it. And we'll talk about the feelings probably either today or tomorrow. But you have to, either way, you have to act as if it's not true and just go along with it. Just like, again, going back to the example of, the bear in the woods. If you went into the woods and you said, you know what, there's no more bears, I'm not scared, I'm not dealing with it. The mind will still send you a few thoughts, but then next time and the time after that you go into the woods, it's going to send you much less thoughts because it's seeing that you're brave, it's seeing that you're acting up as if the thought is not important. So it takes it to believe that there is no danger. So you have to kind of, it's like fake it till you make it when it comes to OCD, that you have to fake these behaviors and fake as if there is nothing wrong, and then your brain will stop sending you thoughts and you will stop feeling like there is something wrong. Because when you do the reassurance, you are really confusing your mind, and you have to be very conscious of what you're doing here. And I know in the moment you feel like your world is ending and you just need to get that reassurance, but in reality you are making yourself worse. So you really have to pull back and say, you know what, I'm not doing the reassurance, I'm gonna stop right now, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And it's very, very difficult at first, but I promise you for sure it will get easier. You just have to stay strong in the very beginning when it's really, really bad. Because at first, when you start to refuse the reassurance in the very beginning, it's like basically you're going against what your mind is viewing as safe. And of course, your mind's perception of safe is wrong because it's only thinking that, you know, you paying attention and you doing the reassurance is safe because before that's kind of what you taught it, you know. So now it has this wrong perception. So when you try to go back to the right way of doing things, your mind actually doesn't understand it as the right way. So it's going to try to rebel and try to get you to do the reassurance again, to be in a state of anxiety again, because it thinks that you're going basically into the woods and the bear is going to get you, you know? So, and that's kind of what happens when you're starting to recover at first, that you will feel like this. So you want to make sure that you know this, you're conscious of the situation, and you're still refusing the thought, because that's the most important thing, is just always refuse to buy into the thought that the more you feel like the situation is true, you know, kind of the deeper you get into it, the more you'll feel like the situation is true. And I guess while we're here, let's talk about the feelings, because the feelings when it comes to OCD are also not true. Think about it this way. When you get an OCD thought, you are getting it. You're not creating it, you're getting it. You know? OCD thought hits you. These feelings hit you. You start to worry, you get more feelings. All of this is beyond your control. The only thing that is in control is how you choose to react. Yes, you got the feelings of guilt. Yes, you got the feelings of shame. Yes, you got the feelings of what if it's true, I'm going to lose everything. Yes, you got the particular thought. But now what do you do with it? You can choose to take it seriously and keep these feelings going, or you can choose to say, you know what, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to move forward, I'm just going to keep going. And when you choose to keep going, as hard as it is, and you know, I had OCD myself, if you guys don't know much about me, I've gotten over OCD basically, and I'm now helping other people get over it for quite a number of years now. So, you know, but I know how difficult it is, you know, to kind of feel the fear and at the same time go against what you want to do, which is you want to do the reassurance. But as you stop believing these thoughts and forcing yourself to stop believing these thoughts, and as you are doing things the way you truly want to do them, you know, all these things are going to get weaker and weaker, and new thoughts are not going to come in as strong, so you're able to dismiss them. Because that is the only thing that differentiates a person who has OCD with a person who doesn't have OCD, is the person who has OCD will view these thoughts as serious. Yeah, the person who has OCD will view these thoughts as serious, and the person who doesn't have OCD will just let them go. They might get the exact same thought. It just depends on how they react to these thoughts. You know? So that's very, very important to know, that it's your reaction that keeps the disorder going, and your reaction that can stop this disorder. You don't need anybody else. All you need is to stop the reassurance. And it's very, very difficult, and it's good when you have somebody you can talk to. But if you don't have anybody to talk to, well, you can listen to me, you know. But if you don't have anybody you can talk to, know that it's not necessary, as long as you can keep strong within yourself and just say, you know what, I've had enough with this stuff. I've had enough with OCD. I'm not dealing with this any longer. And just being very strong and very very brave, because bravery is important when it comes to OCD. You have to be brave. You have to keep moving forward no matter what. So if you had a bad day or you had a bad situation, just walk past it, keep going forward. And the more you give your mind to attach to, so the more visual auditory stimulations you give it, the less it can focus on OCD specifically. Because your mind is a machine, it can only focus on so many things at once. So if you give it a lot of stuff to focus on besides OCD, it can't possibly focus on OCD to the degree if you um, sat in a quiet room thinking about it. You have to give a lot to your mind to focus on, and then OCD will be just another thing. It won't, zero in on it, basically. So when you do this, what you can expect is you can actually, your mind is going to start to rebel at first, so you get an increased amount of anxiety. So your anxiety is actually going to go up. It's not going to go down at first. And that's just because you're going kind of against the grain, you're going against what OCD wants you to do. But as you keep going, as you keep progressing in this recovery, you will start to feel that something is shifting. Maybe you're not having as much anxiety to each thought. You are getting maybe more thoughts because, see, your brain will start throwing everything it can at you to get you to react. To your brain, it doesn't matter if it's throwing the same thought over and over again or different thoughts. And some people will get the same thought for years, and others will get a new thought, each hour of the day, basically. But it's just about your reaction. If you are getting a new thought very quickly, so say every hour you're getting a new thought, that's not a bad thing, because that means that the thought is not sticking to you. So you're dismissed one, a new one came. You dismissed one, a new one came. So that means you are dismissing them. If the thought is sticking around and is getting worse, then that means you're doing self-reassurance, which the more self-reassurance you do, the worse these thoughts are going to get. By the way, guys, as I'm talking, if you have any questions, please put your question in the chat. Just make sure when you ask me a question that you kind of give me, you don't have to give me the full background story. This is a public place, and you don't have to disclose any details, but at the same time give me enough so I can understand what exactly you're asking. So somewhere in the middle there. And if it's not clear, I'll ask you. But anyways, going back to the recovery. As you're starting to recover and as you feel like your thoughts are switching very fast, it's important for you to just keep going forward. Don't stop, just keep going forward. And your OCD will start to get weaker and weaker and weaker, and then it will start to go away. But it takes a little bit of time, basically. It's not an instant situation, and it just takes a little bit of time to get there. So, just waiting for some questions here. Another topic I wanted to bring up is the feelings when it comes to OCD in more detail. With feelings, the basic thing about the feelings is they are auto-generated, just like your thoughts are auto-generated. There's not much difference between the thoughts and the feelings, because the thoughts are driving the feelings. You are a good person, and as a good person, you will get the feelings of, guilt and shame and all of this when you are faced with this very bad, very intrusive thought. It's your natural reaction, because if this thought was true, this is how you would react. Since your brain thinks the thought is true, that is how it's reacting. That is why you're getting those feelings. So just don't think that, because I always hear this all the time, that my clients say that, it feels real, so it's hard to react as if it's not real, because it feels real. And that's what it was like with me too, because it was feeling so real, I didn't even think that it could possibly not be true in the beginning, because when I started to recover, when I started to understand slowly that something was wrong, I didn't even know that anything about OCD. Like, I started from zero. I did not know, what OCD was. At that time, it wasn't popular, especially being from, European background. In Europe, it's not as common to talk about OCD stuff as it is in, like, United States, Canada, I find, anyways. So it's, being from a background where I never heard anything, I totally believed those feelings. And they started to kind of overpower me. Because the more you buy into them, the more you believe them, the worse those feelings get. So you always have to keep it in perspective that these are very common, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing going on, I'm just going to let these thoughts and feelings go. And as you do that, you will start to feel that your OCD is going away. And another question I get asked sometimes that, well, what if I dismiss the situation and then later it turns out that it's true? What happens when you dismiss the situation? Actually, okay, let's start from when you get the situation. When you get the situation and you get the feelings and you get the thoughts and the what ifs and all of this, your mind is running a million miles a minute, and you're not really thinking logically of the situation. You're thinking entirely from a feelings perspective. So when you drop this and you start to think from a logical perspective, and the way to drop it is to reduce the anxiety by stopping your attention flow to these thoughts. So when your anxiety drops and the emotions and feelings drop, you'll start to feel that the thoughts are not as important. So as you feel that way, you start to look at them more rationally. And from that rational point, you can see exactly if the thought was real or not, because you're seeing it just like everyone else. But I'm telling you that you will not, I mean, I have never, ever, ever heard of a person thinking something was OCD and it was real. So you'll be the first. So you have to make sure that if you're having the feelings and all of this, don't try to, and this is another mistake of trying to always solve the situation when you're dealing with these high emotions and high feelings. You won't be able to solve it. First of all, because you're not looking at it rationally. And second of all, because again, you're not looking at it rationally. You won't know all the details. You can't really put things together the way you normally would be able to, because you're so kind of amped up on emotions. So you have to give it time, and you have to say, you know what, this is not true, I'm gonna let it go. And once you let it go and some time goes by, you actually will see like that this was nothing. Just like if you look back at your old OCD thoughts and you think, oh right, that was nothing, that was just a thought, that was just an OCD thought, I can't believe I spent days, months, hours, whatever, worried about it, that was silly. So just like that you will feel about these thoughts. Yeah, so just like and actually, as I was saying, I got the same question that, yeah, after these thoughts drop, you will be able to see that the thoughts were nothing. So there's going to come a time when you will see that, okay, yeah, you know what? There's nothing wrong. There was no reason to worry. But at first, it is a little bit difficult when you're just starting out, when you first get the thought. But yeah, it does get easier. I'm 100% telling you that you will not have this doubt for the rest of your life. So, and another thing I want to kind of to talk about too is, well, who doesn't recover? Because this is an important part too, because I always get asked, well, are there people that don't recover from OCD? And yes, there are people that don't recover. That's the people who can't stop seeking reassurance. And again, reassurance comes in all forms. So there is self-reassurance, which is reassurance that you get from yourself when you're analyzing, when you're trying to solve the thought, when you're doing rumination, all of this stuff. So if you're sitting in a room thinking about it, that's self-reassurance. Now there's also reassurance from other people, reassurance from online sources, avoidance is just another form of reassurance. Just avoidance happens before the situation rather than after, but it's still the goal of you avoiding something is to reassure yourself that you're safe. So it's still reassurance. Compulsions, so various mental or physical compulsions, is still a form of reassurance, because by doing the mental or physical compulsion, you're reassuring your safety or the safety of others, or the safety from this thought basically. So when you give up all of this reassurance, that's when you will recover from OCD. And there is no right or wrong here how long it's going to take you, because some people can go really fast through it, and some people take time. A lot of this depends on person's situation, that they may have a situation where they have to recover in a certain amount of time because something is coming up in their life where they have to recover. And in those cases, I find that people progress very quickly because they're goal oriented. If the person is living life, they're functional, but they're not doing too well, I find that a lot of the time they take longer to recover because there's no goal, there's no end date driving them. So they just kind of keep going, but they're more relaxed when it comes to how they handle the thoughts on everyday basis. So they'll have a thought, then they'll handle it the right way, then they'll handle it the wrong way because they know they can afford it, in an emotional sense, right? That they can, they'll have anxiety, but sometimes to them the anxiety is so high that it's worth seeking reassurance, even though it's going to delay their overall progress. I tell you right now that that's a very incorrect way of thinking because seeking reassurance is never ever worth it. But sometimes you may feel like that when you're in the middle of an OCD thought. And also, to this extent, it's good to have people around you who can pull you back from that. So for example, again, going back to the driving example, that if that person had somebody else with them driving, right? Or when they got home, they somebody else knew that they had OCD or whatever the situation, and that other person can say, hey, you better make sure you're not doing any kind of reassurance or self-reassurance or checking or looking or anything, and it really helps because you may not remember that you can't do this stuff, but somebody needs to remember because it's just good for you to stop yourself and stop yourself as soon as possible. Um, so I have another question here. So basically, the more you pay attention to these types of thoughts, and this is for Kuro, I don't know how to pronounce it, but you know who I'm talking about. Um, so the more you pay attention to these thoughts, the stronger they will get. It doesn't mean that the thoughts are true. There's no meaning behind them. If you let go of these thoughts will go away. But the more you pay attention, the stronger reaction you will feel. You can feel a physical reaction, you can feel an emotional reaction. All of these things are false, and you can't take them seriously. The more seriously you take them, the worse. It's the reassurance. The more you go over in your mind, well, why am I feeling this way? Well, why did I think this? What does this mean? The worse they will feel. So you really want to say, you know what? All of these thoughts that have to do with this subject are not true, so I'm not going to pay attention to them. I'm just going to move on. And keep doing that. And don't avoid spending time with people because you are afraid of the thoughts. So you really have to kind of say, you know what, I'm not going to change my behavior at all. I'm a good person. There's nothing wrong. I'm not going to pay attention to it. And the physical symptoms can happen just like the mental symptoms happen, or like just like your mind sends you emotions, it can send you physical symptoms. So um, if you are telling your mind that this thought is important and all the time repeating that, yes, this thought is valid, this thought is important, your mind is going to say, okay, apparently it's important because you keep repeating it. So I'm going to send emotions as if it's important. I'm going to send physical symptoms as it's important because your mind is controlling all aspects of your body. So it can send you physical symptoms, it can send you emotions, it can send you anxiety by just increasing like your cortisol levels, all this kind of stuff. All of this is controlled within your body, So if your mind is out of control, then it's gonna send you these symptoms. They mean nothing. And, always bring yourself back to this, that they mean nothing. It says nothing about you. These are all intrusive thoughts, feelings, whether physical or emotional, and, the thoughts as well. That they mean nothing about you. I can't be any more clear and any more true on that. And this is the same for every person who has OCD. That just because you got a thought, who cares? And always take that into Like always go back to that I got a thought, big deal, I'm just gonna keep going forward. But if you, and because that's what people who don't have OCD do, they get these same thoughts but they just don't make a big deal out of it and the thoughts go away. People with OCD make a big deal of a specific thought and they stick. And the reason why you make a big deal out of a very out of that specific thought rather than some other thought is because that thought is the most worst thing that you could think of. That would be the worst, basically. If you could come up with something that's worse than that, I guarantee you your OCD will switch to that. Right? So it just switches from one to another to another. It's not really about the thought, it's just about your brain coming up with the worst case scenario for you in the particular situation of your life that you are in. You know? Say for example, if a person drives a lot, they're gonna get driving OCD. Then for some reason, I don't know, their car broke down, they're not driving anymore. And for a month, they're not gonna be driving anywhere. They're still gonna get OCD, but just not about driving, maybe about something else. Or they may get a false memory OCD where they're thinking back to, well, when I was driving, so something like that. But they're either way, their OCD will slightly switch because they're not as exposed to the obsession. So, but yeah, physical symptoms versus mental symptoms versus like emotions doesn't really matter. It's all not really coming from you, and they all kind of pretty much mean nothing. So I don't worry about it. So we're coming up close to the end of the show here. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Just to let you guys know, I will be here tomorrow again if you have any more questions. And this is kind of what this thing is for, that, um, basically I'm here to help. So, and guys, the one thing I would appreciate is, because, I'm pretty much like one girl show here. So if you can spread the message that this is happening, and so that other people can get the help, and as you know, it's free. I mean, you know, in a year I might get enough from YouTube to buy a cup of coffee. So yeah, don't think it's like YouTube makes millionaires or anything like that. But yeah, but this show is obviously free, and I am here to give the help that people need. So just please spread the word if you can. Yeah, and I'm just answering another question that yes, certain obsessions do come back after years of not bothering you. And that's because even though you're not bothered by them anymore, your mind still remembers that at some point you worried about it. And if it can't come up with anything from now, it's going to come back from something from the past. And this happens all the time. It's a very, very common thing as well. So you just want to make sure that every time a thought comes in, whether new or old, you're still treating it the same way as an OCD thought and not giving it power. Because right in the beginning, when the thought just hits you, whether it was even an old thought or whatever, but it's hitting you all over again, um, it doesn't have a strong emotional connection to you yet. You just thought of it or just remembered it, so it's just kind of there. And this is the perfect moment to dismiss it because it doesn't have any power. But once you have this thought for a little while, then it's a lot more difficult because you're spending time now thinking about it. So now you have to not only dismiss the thought, but dismiss all of the other stuff that you've already attached to this thought. All of the, well, it was like this, or if it was like this, or what does it mean, all this stuff. So yeah, honestly, I just by how you're writing things, I'm telling you, I see it every single day. You have nothing to worry about. You just need to move on from this, And as you move on, I promise you, you will see that this was nothing. But you do have to move on and stop paying attention to these thoughts, and they will go away. And also don't avoid anything, because avoiding is like telling your mind that you're scared and that you are taking it seriously. So spend time with people, don't shy away because of your OCD and because of these thoughts. And by you doing this exposure, to the feared situation, right? Like spending time with the person, whatever. You're showing to your mind that there's nothing here, nothing is scary, nothing bad has happened, there's nothing going on. So and then that's gonna help you in your recovery. So that was the show for today. If you guys have any questions, please come back tomorrow, same time, and we will discuss more then. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.